Sometimes life has a way of bringing people back together when we least expect it. A single message, a forgotten memory, or one unexpected evening can completely change the course of our lives. Olivia arrived at what she believed was just another private party, but she walked away with something far more valuable than she could have imagined. She discovered that time may separate people, but genuine love, true friendship, and unforgettable memories can survive even the longest distance. This story reminds us that not every goodbye is forever. Sometimes people disappear because life takes them down difficult paths, not because they wanted to leave. And sometimes, after years of silence, fate gives us one final chance to reconnect, forgive, and begin a brand new chapter. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to think about someone you haven't spoken to in a long time. Maybe today is the perfect day to send that message you've been putting off. You never know what one conversation might change. Thank you so much for watching and spending your time with me. Your support truly means everything and inspires me to keep bringing you emotional and meaningful stories every week. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell, so you'll never miss another heartfelt story filled with mystery, emotion, and unforgettable twists. I'd also love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever reunited with someone from your past after many years? How did it feel? I read as many of your comments as I can, and your stories often inspire future videos. Until next time, take care of yourself, be kind to the people around you, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful endings are actually the beginning of an entirely new story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I know you've probably been confused all evening. A few people smiled gently. And honestly, you had every right to be. She took another deep breath. Tonight isn't simply a celebration. It isn't just another party. She looked toward Ethan, then back at me. It's a promise. My heart pounded louder than ever. A promise made many years ago. I whispered to myself, what promise? Megan slowly stepped away from the microphone. She raised one hand, then pointed toward the back of the room. Without thinking, I turned around. Standing only a few feet away was Ethan. He wasn't smiling anymore. His eyes were filled with emotion. He took one slow step forward, then another. The entire room was silent enough to hear every footstep. He stopped directly in front of me, took a deep breath, and quietly said, Olivia, there is something I've wanted to tell you for longer than I can remember. I stared at him, unable to speak, unable to breathe. Somewhere deep inside me, I felt that whatever he was about to say would explain every strange feeling I'd experienced since arriving at the lake house. Maybe it would answer a question I didn't even know I'd been asking for most of my life. People began moving toward the living room. The atmosphere suddenly changed. The cheerful party energy disappeared. Instead, there was anticipation. Almost nervous excitement. Ethan looked toward the house. I think it's time. Time for what? He looked at me with a gentle smile. You'll see. Again with the secrets. I sighed dramatically. You people are impossible. He laughed for the first time. It was genuine. Warm. For just a moment he looked younger. Happier. Then we walked back toward the house together. As we entered, something immediately felt different. Nobody was dancing anymore. Nobody was eating. Every guest had gathered around a small wooden stage near the fireplace. Soft instrumental music replaced the upbeat playlist. Candles flickered across the room. The entire atmosphere had become emotional. Megan stood on the stage holding a microphone. Her hands were shaking slightly. She took a deep breath. Thank you all for coming tonight. The room fell completely silent. I glanced around. Nearly every guest looked emotional. Some smiled through tears. Others exchanged nervous glances. My heartbeat quickened. What is happening? Megan continued. When we planned tonight. She paused. We hoped everything would go perfectly. Planned? I looked toward Ethan. He stood quietly beside the wall, watching, waiting. Megan smiled. Some reunions take days to organize. She looked across the room. Others take 15 years. A strange feeling settled over me. 15 years. Why did that number sound so important? I searched my memory. Before I could figure it out, Megan looked directly at me. Olivia. Every eye in the room turned toward me. My stomach tightened. To my surprise, conversation came naturally. He wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't flirting. He simply listened. Really listened. He asked about my work, my hobbies, my favorite books, places I'd always wanted to visit. Every answer I gave seemed to make him smile, almost proudly, as if hearing about my life mattered to him more than anything else. Eventually I laughed. You ask a lot of questions. I've missed. He stopped himself. Meeting interesting people. Again. Another unfinished sentence. It felt deliberate. Almost like he was constantly stopping himself from revealing something. I leaned against the railing. So, can I ask you something? Of course. Why were you standing here alone? He looked back across the lake. For courage. I frowned. Courage. There are moments in life, he said quietly, when you know one conversation can change everything. His words settled deep inside me. I wasn't sure why, but they did. Before I could ask another question, the back door opened. Someone called loudly from inside. Everyone, please come in. Music stopped. Our eyes met. Time seemed to slow. His expression wasn't surprised. It was almost relieved, as though he'd been expecting me all along. He smiled gently. Good evening. His voice was calm and warm. I hesitated before answering. Hi. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. Felt familiar. He glanced toward the lake before looking back at me. Beautiful place, isn't it? I nodded. It really is. I used to come somewhere like this when I needed to think. You don't anymore? He smiled faintly. Life gets busy. So you're a friend of Megan's? He chuckled. You could say that. I laughed nervously. That's a mysterious answer. I suppose tonight is full of mysterious answers. There it was again. Another strange sentence. It felt like everyone at this party knew something except me. I'm Olivia. I finally introduced myself. He looked directly into my eyes. I know. The words caught me off guard. You know. A brief silence followed. Then he smiled as though realizing he'd said too much. I mean, Megan told everyone you'd be coming. Oh, that explanation sounded reasonable. Yet something about it didn't feel entirely true. He extended his hand. My name is Ethan. I shook it. The moment our hands touched, a strange feeling rushed through me. Not electricity. Not romance. Recognition. For just an instant, random images flashed through my mind. A bicycle. Children laughing. Someone climbing a giant oak tree. A red baseball cap. The images disappeared as quickly as they had appeared. I blinked. What just happened? You all right? Ethan asked. Yeah. I rubbed my forehead. I just felt dizzy. You've had a long week? I guess. He nodded slowly. Neither of us mentioned it again. Instead we continued talking. None of it made any sense. I walked toward one of the large windows overlooking the lake. From there I could see him more clearly. The moonlight reflected across the calm water, outlining his figure. He looked peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Then something unexpected happened. Without turning around, he slowly lifted his head, as though he somehow knew someone was watching him. A chill ran through my body. For a second I considered walking away. Instead, I found myself opening the back door. Cool evening air wrapped around me as soon as I stepped outside. The music instantly became softer behind me. The sounds of laughter faded. Now all I could hear were gentle waves touching the shoreline and leaves moving with the wind. The farther I walked from the house, the quieter everything became. The old wooden dock stretched across the lake, illuminated by small lanterns hanging from its sides. The stranger stood near the end of it. My footsteps echoed softly against the wooden boards. He still hadn't turned around. My heart beat faster with every step. Halfway down the dock I almost stopped. What am I doing? I barely knew this person. For all I knew, Megan had warned me for a very good reason. Yet curiosity was stronger than fear. I continued walking. When I was only a few feet away, he finally turned. The mysterious stranger hadn't moved. He simply stood there beneath the moonlight, as though he had been waiting for someone all night. And for reasons I couldn't understand, I had the overwhelming feeling that someone was me. For nearly 15 minutes, I tried to do exactly what Megan had asked. Stay away from him. It sounded simple enough. I picked up a drink from the refreshment table, joined a conversation with a few guests, and even laughed at a couple of jokes. Everyone around me seemed to be having an incredible time. Music echoed through the old house, people danced beneath glowing string lights, and the atmosphere felt warm and inviting. But no matter how hard I tried to focus on the party, my attention kept drifting back to the lake. Every single time. It was almost impossible to explain. The mysterious man hadn't moved very much. Every now and then he shifted his weight or looked toward the water, but otherwise he remained completely alone. He didn't seem bored. He didn't seem lonely. He looked like someone carrying memories too heavy to put into words. I took another sip of my drink. Stop staring, I whispered to myself. This is ridiculous. Till something inside me refused to let it go. Almost as if an invisible thread was pulling me toward him. One of the guests beside me noticed my distraction. You okay? She asked. Oh, yeah. You seem lost. I was just thinking. She smiled politely before returning to her friends, but I wasn't thinking anymore. I was wondering, who was he? Why had Megan reacted so strangely? And why did I feel like I somehow knew him? He wasn't talking to anyone. He wasn't looking at the decorations. Instead, he stood near the edge of the water with his hands in his pockets, staring across the lake as though lost in another world. Something about him caught my attention instantly. Not because he was particularly handsome, although he certainly was. It was something deeper, something strangely familiar. I couldn't explain it. It felt like seeing someone from a forgotten dream. I continued watching him. For several seconds he never moved. Eventually Megan noticed where I was looking. The smile vanished from her face. Oh. She sounded nervous. I looked at her. What? She hesitated, then quietly said, Just don't go over there. I blinked. What do you mean? It's nothing. If it's nothing, why shouldn't I talk to him? She opened her mouth to answer. But before she could say a word, someone across the room shouted her name. Megan, we need you. She looked frustrated. I'll be right back. Then she turned toward me one last time. Seriously, Olivia? Her voice became unusually serious. Just stay away from him. Without another explanation, she disappeared into the crowd. I stood there completely confused. Stay away from him? Why? Who was he? A family member? An ex-boyfriend? Someone dangerous? None of it made sense. Yet despite her warning, I couldn't stop looking toward the lake. So this is the place. Maybe I really had been overthinking everything. I stepped out of my car. The crisp evening air immediately surrounded me. Somewhere nearby I heard people laughing. Someone inside was playing an acoustic guitar. Everything looked beautiful, almost dreamlike. As I walked toward the entrance, the large wooden door swung open before I even had a chance to knock. There you are. Megan practically threw her arms around me. She hugged me tightly before pulling back with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. You actually came. I laughed. You made it sound like I didn't have a choice. She giggled but quickly glanced over her shoulder as if checking whether someone was watching us. That tiny movement didn't escape my attention. Is everything okay? I asked. She nodded a little too quickly. Of course. But her smile suddenly looked forced. Before I could question her further, she grabbed my hand. Come on. She pulled me inside. The house looked absolutely stunning. Fairy lights wrapped around wooden beams. Fresh flowers decorated every table. People chatted happily while holding drinks. Soft jazz music floated through the room. Everyone appeared relaxed. Everyone, except for one person. Through the large glass windows facing the lake, I noticed someone standing completely alone. A man. Tall. Still. Quiet. The weather had changed. The rain had stopped, but a cool breeze swept through the streets. The sky was covered with thick clouds that hid almost every star. Megan had texted me the address earlier. It wasn't anywhere near downtown. In fact, it was almost 40 minutes outside the city. That alone felt strange. The GPS guided me through neighborhoods I had never visited before. Streetlights became fewer. Buildings disappeared. Soon, all I could see were long stretches of empty road surrounded by towering trees. I turned the music down. The silence outside somehow felt louder than the songs playing inside my car. Every now and then, leaves danced across the road as the wind pushed them around. I checked the GPS again. 10 minutes remaining. I couldn't explain why, but an uneasy feeling settled inside my chest. Nothing dangerous had happened. Everything looked perfectly normal. Yet something about this drive felt different, almost as if the night itself was waiting for something. Finally, the GPS announced my arrival. I slowed the car. Hidden beyond rows of enormous trees stood an old lakeside estate. Warm golden lights decorated the porch. Lanterns hung from tree branches, creating a magical glow that reflected beautifully across the lake. Soft music drifted through the night air. Dozens of cars were parked outside. I let out a long breath. Finally, another message arrived. Asterisk, there's a private party tonight. Asterisk, I raised an eyebrow. Asterisk, private. Asterisk. A few seconds later another notification popped up. Asterisk, not just private, secret. Asterisk. I actually laughed. Asterisk, secret party? Is this some kind of joke? Asterisk. She sent 3 laughing emojis before replying. Asterisk, trust me. You have to come. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. Secret party? Why would anyone keep a party secret? Was it a surprise birthday? Proposal? Some kind of prank? Questions started racing through my mind. Asterisk. What's so special about it? Asterisk, I typed. Her answer only made me more curious. Asterisk, you'll understand when you get here. Don't ask any more questions. Asterisk. That was it. No explanation. No clues. Nothing. For the next hour I couldn't focus on anything else. Every possibility played over and over inside my head. Maybe celebrities were attending. Maybe someone had won the lottery. Maybe it was a costume party. Maybe, I had absolutely no idea. Around 7:30 I finally decided to go. I stood in front of my closet for several minutes before choosing a simple dark blue dress. It wasn't glamorous, but it made me feel confident. I paired it with comfortable shoes and lightly curled my hair before putting on a little makeup. Looking into the mirror, I smiled nervously. What could possibly be so secret about a party? If only I had known. At exactly 8 o'clock, I grabbed my car keys and headed outside. Before we begin today's incredible true story, I have one small favor to ask. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with mystery, unexpected twists, and unforgettable endings, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Every week, I share inspiring stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Now let's get into today's story. My name is Olivia, and what happened one autumn evening completely changed the direction of my life. If someone had told me that a simple text message would lead me to uncover a secret buried for nearly 15 years, I would have laughed and called them crazy. Yet that's exactly what happened. It all started on what seemed like an ordinary Friday. The week had been exhausting. Work had drained every bit of energy I had, and all I wanted was to spend the evening alone. I changed into comfortable clothes, curled up on my bed with a blanket, and started scrolling through videos on my phone while soft rain tapped gently against my bedroom window. Everything felt peaceful, until my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message from my closest friend, Megan. Asterisk, hey, are you busy tonight? Asterisk. I smiled. That was a strange question coming from Megan. She usually called instead of texting. I replied almost immediately. Asterisk, not really. Why? Asterisk. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again.